Okay, Assalamu alaikum class. So this is another chapter of geography, and this is chapter number 3 of your textbook. So let's start with the chapter environment. So what exactly is an environment? So when you see things around you, they're all part of your environment. So your surrounding is your environment. The features that we see can be human made or natural. So for example, if I'm standing on a street and I look around, then I'll look around and I'll see that there are trees. So they are natural. But I will also look at the roads and the buildings and they are man-made, right? So my environment has some natural element and a human element as well. The natural environment, basically, if you were to define a natural environment, then natural environment is basically the relief features. Relief features basically means highest and the lowest elevation points in an area. That, for example, the highest point is a mountain, right? And the lowest point of this relief is a valley, right? So this is basically called the relief. And then we have the natural vegetation spread around. So these two things, the relief and the natural vegetation, they together make up a natural environment. So when an examiner asks you that what exactly is a natural environment, you should be able to answer that a natural environment consists of the relief features and the natural vegetation. So relief features are basically the plains, the mountains and the valleys, right? And then we have scrub vegetation, coniferous forest, and tundra vegetation that we studied in the chapter of natural vegetation. So they're basically natural vegetation. So natural vegetation is a plant that is grown naturally. Now this figure shows the natural vegetation in Kenya. Now, do you know any of the natural vegetation in Pakistan? Any natural environment which is still which can still be classified as purely natural environment. So yes, we have Neelam Valley, we have Hunza. Now let's talk about the human environment. So when you look around and when you're standing on a street, you also look at the roads and the buildings. So they're all man-made. They weren't naturally present over there, right? So we say that they basically form up the human environment. So look at these buildings, look at this road, look at this mosque, the street light, and the things over here. So they're all human made. They were put there or has been built by people. Now, an environment with both natural and human features. Well, you know that uh, you know we in our environment we have both the natural features and the human features. So this is an example of a picture where you can look at this forest. So this forest is a natural environment, right? But then you see that probably there lives a farmer who has built this house and who has planted these broad leaves, and these broad leaves are basically for bananas. So you see that there has been some changes which are made, and these changes can be classified as human features since they have been put there by some human, right? Now, why natural features may or may not be changed to human features? Well, have you ever wondered about the tundra vegetation or the hot desert vegetation? These places are not as much changed by human development as the other places. Well, why do you think is there such a discrepancy? Well, that's because number one is the point of population. So you know that in tundra and in the hot desert vegetation, really and the population is really less, right? So when we have less population, that means you have less demand. So when you have less demand, you try to incorporate less changes in that area, right? So wherever, for example, if tundra has very less vegetation, then you don't need to cut down as many trees. You don't need to make you do not need to bring about technology over there, to make water reservoirs. So the population basically matters a lot. And then tundra and hot desert vegetation, only few people live over there. Why? Because these places are very dry and they have extreme temperatures as well. So this is too cold and this is too hot. Now, if you talk about the need to produce more food, For example, if you talk about, if in an area we have tropical rainforest, then we don't need to, bring incorporate a lot many human changes, because we have plenty of food available there. But if we have a scrub vegetation over there, which means that we have thorny bushes, then of course we need to remove the scrub vegetation, and um, we need to change this vegetation into farmlands by providing them adequate amount of water. Then let's talk about the technology. So for example, in Pakistan we have the Turbela and the Mangla dams. Now dams are those, um, anything that basically, any barrier which holds back water, right? And these dams basically result in the formation of reservoirs. These reservoirs are basically man-made lakes to store water. So now this technology of dam has resulted in reservoirs, and this has in turn made it possible for providing huge quantities of water to the areas around. Now, since water goes to such dry areas, so they can now be changed into farmlands to produce food and other crops. So, what are the three main things? Population, need for need to produce more food, and technology. So, depending on these three features, the natural features may or may not be changed to human features. Now, how natural environments change to human environments? Well, natural environment, let's say land is plowed in order to grow crops. So, to plow is basically to break down the soil into smaller pieces so you can grow crops over there. Then trees are cut down because people want to use timber. So we know that trees basically give us timber, and timber is used in furniture. They may also be cut down to make room to grow crops. We have already read that in natural vegetation, that in order to grow farmlands, we need to clear an area, we need to cut down the trees. Then level field steps or terraces. So we have terracing farming made on steep slopes to increase the areas on which food crops can be grown. So we have these terraces which are basically made on a steep slope, and on them the crops grow. Well, this is done so that the water can basically be stopped from accumulating and causing soil erosion. Now we have more facilities. So more for example, if we need more facilities in an area, we are going to make more roads, and we are going to make sure that there's enough electricity, right? So then there's, this is how natural environment changes to human environment. And then lands to be leveled for runways. For example, if I have an area around the airport, then I'm going to level the land for runways, and then we have docks for the ship as well. So for timber, we make furniture. This is ploughing. This is a road which is made in this natural area environment. And then we have terracing, we have the dock, and then we have the runway. Now do it yourself. How do you think this picture, that all these pictures differ from one another? Look at the buildings, look at the roads, look at all these things. This is how this natural environment was gradually changed into a human environment. Well, this is not purely natural, since we can still see the houses over here. The human environment always good for nature. Well, do you think that the human environment is always good for nature? Even a very small development of a human environment in an area changes the natural environment there, right? So for example, if you build a house in some place, then you basically you play with that soil. And once you damage that soil, for example, if that soil is a fertile soil, but you have built a house over there, then that fertile soil is lost forever. So destruction of natural vegetation, we have already discussed, can result in air pollution, because for example, if we have less trees, we have more carbon dioxide, and more carbon dioxide and other pollutants, and then we have less oxygen as well. Then loss of habitats is because these forests are habitats for many organisms, and when we destroy them, we destroy their places, their shelter. And then loss of soil, because we already know roots are important to hold the soil, and when we have no roots, no plants, then this soil can easily be eroded. So we have already discussed these all these 3 points in the chapter of natural vegetation. Well, these are the questions that I've given you in the question bank. I'm going to give you this as homework, but before that, I'm going to discuss with you the answers. So define the term natural and the human environment